what I think it boils down to is most people don't know what you know. So when you're communicating something, you can't assume that they understand the context that you're presenting to them. I'm not saying you treat people like middle schoolers or, adolescent kids, but there is a little bit of, if I'm going to explain what HR tech is or what video interviewing is, I'm not always talking to sophisticated TA leaders that know what I'm talking to them. So there's jargon, there's things that either you slow it way down or you articulate it. And if somebody acts like, yeah, I got that, or I come from the industry, great, you can speed up. But I think people typically jump to the most sophisticated way of presenting something when in fact it should be the opposite and you work up towards it. And so I think one thing is just make it simple. And I very rarely think people think about what they're sharing and take it from the opposite shoes. People think if I just sprinkle a little bit of social media, everybody's going to pay attention. Or if I launch a podcast, I'm going to become Joe Rogan. Well, think about the consumer of the content or the consumer of the communication that you're trying to present. And are you actually leaving anything that's value add or value driven? So when you're listening to a speaker on stage talk for an hour, you're going to remember two things, maybe, if that. If you're taking notes, maybe a few more. But for the most part, you're going to remember two things or even one thing. You're not going to remember their name. You're not going to remember their background. You're not going to remember their company. You're going to remember one or two things. And so as a speaker, what are those two things that you want to leave and really drive home so that they remember, whether that's speaking in front of one person on a date, whether that's presenting the typical elevator pitch, or whether that's, speaking in front of a stage of a couple thousand people. It doesn't really matter. But I think good, effective communicators recognize what they receive and what kind of information they take home. And then I think it's our job to, in order to effectively communicate, make it very simple and something that you can remember.